12 hours, 14 minutes, and 20 seconds. Oh my God, we did it. We actually did it. Every currently operating ride at Disneyland complete. Yeah, I just did that. I speedran Disneyland. Okay, I gotta admit, I'm not the first person to try this challenge where you ride every ride at Disneyland in one day. This concept has taken many different shapes and forms over the past decade, but I would like to provide a new platform for this challenge. Specifically because I want to make this more of a competitive challenge that anyone can do on any day of the year if they want to. So, today I'm gonna explain the rules that I went by to do my Disneyland speedrun and the rules that you should go by to do your Disneyland speedrun and put your name on the leaderboard. But real quick, let's go over the challenges that do exist. So last year, AlphaRad did this really freaking cool video where he went on every ride in the park with like 11 other big YouTubers. It was really cool. And look, AlphaRad, I loved your video a lot, but I gotta say, I have a few criticisms. Firstly, there was 8 operational rides that you just didn't go on that day. You showed up like 40 minutes after rope drop, and then you paid like $10,000 for the special tour guide that lets you skip all of the lines, and then you still barely finished before midnight. Like, I don't know, man. I can't criticize too much though, because like, if it weren't for that video, I probably wouldn't have been inspired enough to make something better. A Coaster Story just recently did this insane challenge where he went on every single ride in every single Disney theme park in the world. Like, oh, okay, bro, you win that challenge. No one's gonna compete against you on that one. You win. And the Parkeology Challenge was probably one of the most established challenges doing this, where you ride every ride in one day. And while all those challenges are really awesome, there's not really a way that you can compete against other people. That's what I'm trying to get at here, is that I created Disneyland Speedrun because I want people to be like, oh, I got this sub 12-hour run. Take that, Trevin. You got a 12-hour, 14 minutes, 20 seconds. I can do better than that. Like, that's the kind of competition that I really feel like can exist with a speedrun challenge.
Okay, so it's worth mentioning that after I recorded this video, someone actually did a Disneyland speedrun with my rules and beat me and got a sub 12-hour time in actual time. People are doing this challenge and you should too. This is the start of something good.
Every video game has some sort of speedrunning challenge. Why not theme parks? On my website, themeparkspeedruns.com, I define Disneyland speedrun as the idea of taking the practice and culture of speedruns in video games and applying it to Disneyland and Disney California Adventure. I hope by the end of this video, you understand why I had to create this brand new challenge so that it lives up to that statement. All of the rules that I'm about to say are listed on this website, so go there. It actually elaborates a little bit more than what I'm gonna say in this video, but this is just a general, this is the spark notes of it. All right, let's get into the rules. But real quick, this video is brought to you by the Magic Candle Company. This candle smells like pirates. Yeah, it smells like pirates. If you click the first link in the description below and use code SPEEDRUN at checkout, you can get 15% off your entire order. Okay, now let's get into the rules. Let's go to my computer. It's in the other room. Let's go. Yep, this is where I spent the last 2 months of my life editing the Disneyland speedrun video. God, that was a different time. I mean, I spent so much time editing that video that I haven't even updated my calendar yet. It's August now. Like, what is this? Anyways, here's the website I created for Disneyland Speedrun that lists all of the rules and regulations and everything that I went off of to make this challenge possible. This website even shows a way how you can submit a run, so make sure you stick to the end of the video so you can see how to do that. But of course, if you want to do that, you have to actually know what the rules are. So we're gonna go through them right now. So there's only 4 actual rules to this challenge. Rule number 1 is to follow all of Disneyland's official rules. Okay, I would hope that this one is pretty self-explanatory. I created this challenge because I really respect and love Disneyland. I don't want people breaking any rules, okay? That means no running, you gotta speed walk, and everything that is listed on their official website, you can't do, okay? No selfie sticks, I'm sorry, you gotta, no selfie sticks. Rule number 2 is to eat a substantial meal and drink water. Okay, so this rule's a little bit strict, I'll admit. It was something that I created because I wanted to make sure that I was actually eating and not just tunnel vision going on rides all day. So every 5 hours, you're required to eat a meal at Disneyland. Not something like churros or popcorn. You have to actually eat something like substantial. You can bring in your own food if you want, but it can't just be like a snack. You have to actually eat food. You're also required to have water on you at all times. You don't want to do anything that's going to put your health at risk, basically. That's what this whole rule is. Don't do anything stupid. If you feel like you're dehydrated, go talk to a cast member and, you know, figure that out. Stop the run. your health is more important, is what I'm trying to say. Rule number 3 is that you have to keep track of your time. All right, so since this is a speed run, you want to make sure that you are keeping record of time. So a stopwatch is probably the best way to do it, but there's specific time increments that I want to make sure you're like getting. You shouldn't just take the final time of, oh, 12 hours, 14 minutes, 20 seconds. That's the final and only time that I'm going to show. Like, there's a few different things that I want you to keep in mind. So every time you enter the queue of a ride, you have to have that time recorded somewhere. And then every time you get out of the exit queue of a ride, you have to have that time recorded somewhere. So from there, we can actually figure out how long you waited in the line, because if you just take out the ride duration time, then you can figure out how long you waited. So there's a few different ways that you can go about this. The easiest would probably just to be live tweeting every time you get in line for a ride and every time you get out of line, or live Xing, I guess. Yeah, it's not called Twitter anymore. Who cares? I'm still gonna call it Twitter. I don't care. The way I did it was not really the most convenient way of doing it, because I'm a little crazy. So I had a GoPro strapped to me for the entire day, and I was able to figure out when the time started and stopped for every ride, because I had the stopwatch and I knew exactly when I started it. And it was just like a long 12-hour continuous video. I have it on my hard drive still, and it's got the stopwatch in the corner. And obviously, yes, I know that I had to stop the camera a couple times because you got to go to the bathroom. And that's actually where I use the power of live tweeting. I would actually tweet whenever I had to turn the camera off, and whenever I had to turn the camera back on, I would tweet again. Usually when I would turn the camera back on, I would say out loud like what the time is on my stopwatch. Timer is 5 hours, 58 minutes, 8 seconds, 9 seconds, okay. But as I learned, it's not as easy to just throw a GoPro on your chest and hit record to actually record 12 hours of footage on a GoPro. It's a little bit complicated and a little bit expensive, so I wouldn't recommend that everyone does this route. Live tweeting is just probably the easiest way to do it, but I'm really giving this up to you guys. If you want to have it on a notes app, you just got to make sure that you have the time of when you got in line for every single ride and when you got out of line for every single ride. So rule number 4 is the time addition rule, and with that, the inconvenient hours penalty. But we're not going to get into that just yet because it's kind of complicated and I don't want to confuse you guys yet, so we're going to wait on that. But you want to make sure you watch that part of the video. If it weren't for the time addition rule, you wouldn't be able to compete against other runners, so it's kind of important. But for now, we're going to clarify a few things about Disneyland Speedrun. The first thing I want to clarify is that time will not be deducted due to a ride breakdown. You can call it bad RNG, you can call it whatever you want, but you're not gonna have time deducted if you get stuck on a ride or if you're in line for a ride and it's stuck. I mean, I had to wait like 40 minutes for Indiana Jones because it broke down while we were in line, and that was with Lightning Lane. I'm still kind of salty about that. That would have saved so much time, but it is what it is. You know, you just kind of have to roll with the punches. That's the whole strategy of doing Disneyland in general. The second thing I want to clarify is that yes, you are allowed to have people there with you helping you out. So of course I had my friend Jeffrey come with me, bless his soul. He was a trooper. He stuck with me for the entire day. So if you want to go the route of live tweeting, you can have that person live tweet every time you get in line or get out of line. You could have them pick up food for you. You could, because they don't actually need to ride every ride with you. I think Jeffrey did like all but 2 rides with me, and that's totally fine. He doesn't need to do every ride. Also, I need to make this clear. Any Lightning Lane or multi-experience pass that you use has to be under your name. And I put this rule in there because I realized that you could hypothetically invite like 35 friends to Disneyland with you and then have them all like farm a multi-experience pass from a ride that just broke down, and then all of a sudden you have 36 multi-experience passes and you could just skip the line of every ride, and like that's obviously cheating. But yes, you can have someone with you. Just make sure you're not using their multi-experience passes for you. The third thing I want to clarify is, when does your speed run actually begin and end? Okay, so the time will strictly start at the time of rope drop, 8 a.m. If rope drop is like a minute late or a minute early, you still start the time right at 8 a.m. Same goes for if you're using early entry, but instead early entry would just be 7:30 a.m. instead of 8 a.m. And if you come after rope drop, which I wouldn't really recommend if you're trying to ride every ride in one day, but let's say you come after rope drop because something happened, the time will start right when your ticket is scanned into the park. So you actually have an incentive to rope drop because your time can just not include the time it takes to walk up Main Street to, you know, get to the rides. And the time will stop when you get off of your final ride. And you have to make sure you actually exit the exiting queue. So for me, I didn't actually stop the time until I had actually exited the gift shop of Runaway Railway. You wanna make sure that you're doing that. The last thing that I need to clarify is what is considered a ride at Disneyland? Okay, this shouldn't be complicated, but for some reason it is. Let's get into this. What rides are actually included? Disneyland has this really cool list on their website called the Disneyland Attractions page, but not all Disneyland attractions are rides, because that would mean something like the Tiki Room would be a ride. So the way that I have defined a Disneyland ride is any Disneyland attraction that moves. So from there you can boil it down to 36 rides at Disneyland and 20 rides at California Adventure. And I guess technically at Disneyland it's 35 now because Splash Mountain's closed now, but it'll reopen in like a year and a half or whatever. Okay, also I want to make this very clear. The raft to get to Tom Sawyer Island is not a ride. I know it moves, it moves, I know, but it is not a Disneyland attraction. Tom Sawyer Island is a Disneyland attraction, but the Tom Sawyer Island raft is not an attraction. I know, it's complicated, but I need to be strict with these rules. So the raft, you don't have to do the raft, it's not a ride. Also, I gotta give a little bit of clarifications for what you're supposed to do for some of the rides. So for the Disneyland Railroad, you actually have to do a complete loop because that is the full ride. Same with the monorail, because I mean that one's kind of self-explanatory. You wouldn't really want to get off at Downtown Disney. You're just not in the park anymore. And then there's the Main Street vehicles, which as I explained in the speedrun video, you only have to ride one of them because it's only considered one attraction on the website. And you don't actually have to do a full loop for the Main Street vehicles because they're actually advertised as one-way rides. So you can just go from the top of Main Street to the bottom or the bottom to the top, it doesn't matter. Same with the red car trolley, but you want to make sure that you're starting and stopping at the polar opposite stops. So you would either start at the front of California Adventure and go to the back of Hollywood Studios, or you would do it vice versa. Okay, now it's finally time to talk about the time edition rule. Now, this is where things are gonna get a little bit complicated, so make sure you're listening. Okay, everyone, buckle up. I'm gonna try my best to explain this, but I gotta admit, it's gonna get a little bit complicated, so please just hang in there. Everyone knows that rides break down all the time, whether it be they're broken down because of ride refurbishments or they're broken down temporarily for the day. Sometimes rides close seasonally so that they can put up a seasonal overlay, or sometimes rides get permanently closed, or even just to the opposite of that, sometimes brand new rides just open. With Disneyland always changing, the biggest hurdle that I found when I was creating these rules is how do I make this a competitive challenge throughout all of the changes that's going on at Disneyland? How can I have it so that someone who is doing the challenge in December can actually have a chance at competing against someone who did it like in, I don't know, February, when there's, you know, different rides are closed during those 2 different days? How do I account for that? And the solution that I came up with is the time addition rule. So there's this website called Thrill Data, and it's this really cool website that actually shows you a lot of data for a lot of different theme parks. It's very useful when you're trying to plan on going on every ride in the park in one day. I would recommend using it to help you plan that out. Here's the thing, no one else has planned for 6 months like I have. But what we're gonna focus on is this, the daily typical wait time heat map. It's basically a set of data that will show you the average wait time for every ride at any given time during the day for each hour. But what makes this very important is that it's taking this data from an average of about a year and a half's time span. So this shows you basically the average wait time of any ride on any given day by the hour. So again, very useful when you're planning a speed run of every ride. But when you take the average of all these hours, you now have the average wait time for every ride on any given day of the year. If you then link up all of those ride wait times with the ride duration times, then you now have a very rough average amount of time that it's gonna take you to actually ride any ride in the park. So let's say you go on a day such as the day that I went, for example, and the Matterhorn and Sailing Ship Columbia are closed for the entire day. You would then take both of those time additions and add it to your final time that you have at the end of the run. And also because Pirates was closed the moment that I got off of Runaway Railway, I also had to take the time addition for Pirates because there wasn't any other rides for me to do. I had to finish somehow. So for Matterhorn, Sailing Ship Columbia, and Pirates, the respective time additions for those was 47 minutes and 30 seconds, 23 minutes and 45 seconds, and 43 minutes and 15 seconds. If you add all of that time together with the 12 hours, 14 minutes, 20 seconds that I had at the end of every other ride, then you come with a grand total of 14 hours, 8 minutes, and 50 seconds. That is the final time that you are gonna be competing against if you want to do a Disneyland speedrun. Okay, understand that? Good. because things are about to get a little bit more complicated. So after I had already created all of these rules, I realized something that was kind of crucial, and that is that there are rides that actually close early. In fact, there's 4 of them. It's these 4 rides right here, and the hours actually tend to fluctuate quite a bit, so that makes it a lot more scary. What I realized is that someone who is being very strategic about all this could just intentionally skip these rides and wait for them to close so that they just take the time edition and don't have to actually do them. Because these rides, they're not like simple rides to do. It's like the Mark Twain Riverboat, the sailing ship Columbia, like these rides take a lot of time. They kind of suck. But since this is a challenge that wants to encourage people to actually do every ride at Disneyland in one day, I don't want people to be intentionally skipping rides because they think it's like faster to just not do every ride. Like, yeah, it is faster, but like you're supposed to be doing every ride. So initially I was gonna say that if you don't do all these rides in time, then your run will be disqualified. But I feel like that wouldn't be fair because I feel like there are actual scenarios where someone's not able to do the ride on time if it's open. Like let's say Mark Twain Riverboat doesn't open on time. It's only open for maybe like a tiny sliver of the day, and because they didn't have the chance to actually get over to the park where the Mark Twain Riverboat is, they didn't go on the ride. And that's not their fault. That's just, it is what it is. You know, it's a theme park. It's difficult to operate something like that. So the compromise that I came up with is the inconvenient hours penalty. And it's basically a 22-minute penalty that you'll be taking for not doing any of these 4 rides on a day that they were operational. You will take the 22 minutes as well as the time edition. And this penalty is really just there to say, hey, you need to go on these rides, okay? You can't skip them, you need to go on them. All right, and with that, you're now ready to submit your own Disneyland speedrun. You can submit your run on the website. Again, the link to the website is themeparkspeedruns.com. I'll put it in the description below. Also, don't forget that if you use the code SPEEDRUN, you can get 15% off the Magic Candle Company. And with that, I'll see you later.